Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. You're checking me out live. Don't forget, you can always follow me on Twitter. That's at DrewDuncan83. Of course, the official fan page of Full Court Press is on Facebook. You can talk to me there at DrewDuncan83 as well. And I am also on Instagram at DrewDuncan83. It is Talk to Me Tuesday right here on the Full Court Press. And basically, it's one of those things that I do that it's kind of my ode to the fans, to be honest with you. It's a thing where it's an ode to the fans. I'm all about the fans. And I think it gets lost in translation. You know, I see a lot of other journalists and broadcasters. They get on a microphone, they get on TV, and they indirectly, basically, debate with the comment section on Facebook. And I just never felt that that's the way to do things. I feel like direct communication is the best way to go. So obviously, while we're on here live on Spreaker, you can talk to me live here on Spreaker. You can talk to me live here on at DrewDuncan83 on Twitter, at DrewDuncan83 on Facebook, at DrewDuncan83 on Instagram. Made it really easy to find me. So I'll just kind of get the ball rolling. Ezekiel Elliott, obviously a huge source of news. Huge source of news. Ezekiel Elliott, though, he is not going to get charged with the alleged domestic violence issues. Allegedly being able to provide information saying that, hey, look, I was set up. I broke up with her. She got mad at me. This is payback. And ended that. Despite that, Roger Goodell has said that he is probably going to suspend Ezekiel Elliott for the first 2 games of the NFL season. Additionally, it appears as though Ezekiel Elliott was in a bar fight. TMZ, some other sources, which, by the way, I hate TMZ just for the record, but they had the video, so it's out there. TMZ allegedly reports that Ezekiel Elliott's in a bar fight. They show a video of him knocked out on the ground. Ezekiel Elliott says he doesn't know who it is, doesn't know how this happened. And now he gets a speeding ticket doing 100 miles an hour, which is 30 over the speed limit, and he only got a ticket. Misdemeanor. So it begs the question, is any of this a concern for Ezekiel Elliott? Is it a lot of little things starting to add up? Is this a bigger sign of things to potentially come? After all, we've seen guys like Johnny Manziel. It's kind of like, okay, it's not a big deal with the autograph thing. It's his signature. It's college. He's got to make some extra money. Then we see an alleged report of him and his girlfriend. Then there's pictures of him out at nightclubs and he's flashing money all over the place. Then everything starts to spiral out of control. It's kind of like Lawrence Phillips, right? Lawrence Phillips, we see one thing happen, then another thing happened, then another thing happened, then another thing happened. I mean, clearly, if you're any kind of fan at all of this football team, or if Ezekiel Elliott, that's got to be your concern. If you're Jerry Jones, this has got to be your concern. Jerry Jones is no stranger to this. The Dallas Cowboys have been for years a team that has been under excruciating scrutiny. You've had Dallas cheerleaders who have posed for Playboy. Not everybody thought too kindly of that. Other people don't care. You've had a lot of great publicity for the Super Bowl wins, but you've also had issues with guys like Michael Irvin, Leon Lett. Wasn't it Barry Switzer, if I remember correctly, when he was still the coach of the Dallas Cowboys? He tried to get through an airport with a gun. It was a gun that he wasn't allowed to have. Is that right? It was Barry Switzer, right? When he was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. We've seen recently over the last couple of years, guys face domestic violence charges. We've seen brutal photos and pictures come out. Guys have been given second, third, and fourth chances by Jerry Jones, and unfortunately, it just really hasn't panned out for him. Here's the one thing I love about Jerry Jones. This is the actual one thing I love about Jerry, is his willingness to give other guys an opportunity. You know, I'm a guy that's all about second chances. I'm a guy that's all about reform. I'm a guy that's all about making sure that when somebody's in a little bit of trouble, they've got a job to rely on. I'm a guy that's all about sitting down with somebody and talking to them and saying, hey, man, did you learn a lesson? Do you understand everything that happened here? Do you get it? I'm that guy. But how many chances do you give somebody? How many chances do you give Josh Gordon? How many chances do you give Johnny Manziel? How many chances do you give Michael Irvin, Leon Lett, Deion Sanders? How many chances do you give everybody? And that's the thing. Ray Rice, how many chances did he get? He got one shot in the NFL. We all saw the brutality of what happened in the elevator. Nobody wants to give him a second chance. Of course, in the case of Ezekiel Elliott, we are talking about two different things, right? I mean, come on, let's keep it real. Ezekiel Elliott's a lot of little things. Guys get into bar fights all the time. It's nothing new. Well, he shouldn't put himself in that situation. Folks, when you are essentially one of the faces of the NFL, you're going to be out there. And some fan for some other team may not like you. Somebody could mistake you for somebody else and do something about it. I'm not saying that Ezekiel Elliott didn't put himself in that situation. We don't know everything about it. After all, he claims that he doesn't know who did it. Maybe Ezekiel Elliott's just not a snitch. Who the hell really knows? Right? What we do know is this. Is that Ezekiel Elliott, for the time being, is in a little bit of trouble. And Roger Goodell is probably going to suspend him now. And it is going to wreak hell for the Dallas Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott, for not being in 2 games, believe it or not, folks, is a big deal. It really is a big deal. Don't forget, this is Talk to Me Tuesday. You can find me at Drew Duncan 83. You can find me on Facebook at Drew Duncan 83, Instagram at Drew Duncan 83. Anything you want to talk about. Anything. Weigh in your opinion. If you have a question about anything, this is the day for the fans. Talk to Me Tuesday. You can also message me here on Spreaker. Dak Prescott needs Ezekiel Elliott as much as Ezekiel Elliott needs Dak Prescott. They're the classic 1-2 combo. They're the essential equivalent of Ricky Watters and Steve Young. They're the equivalent of John Elway and Terrell Davis. They're the equivalent of Roger Staubach and Tony. They're Marcus Allen and Joe Montana. They're Roger Craig and Joe Montana. They're the perfect backfield combination. They love being in competition with each other. Either one man could have won Offensive Rookie of the Year, could have won Rookie of the Year, could have won Player of the Year. Either one of those guys could have done it last year. You got to keep your head on a swivel, man. You got to stay focused in this game because the NFL is a different animal. And there's already a ton of rumors as it is that Ezekiel loves to drink and party. And I'm going to tell you what, I remember a very good friend of mine was like, why are you being so judgmental? But I looked at his gut one day and I said, that dude likes his beer, man. I mean, you could just tell. Do I think it's a big deal for a guy to party? No, as long as it doesn't hinder what he does on the football field. You know, back in the day, there were rumors of guys like Stabler and some of these other Raiders that were, you know, taking shots of whiskey in the huddle. It's nothing new. Am I saying that alcohol or anything else is a problem for Ezekiel Elliott? No, I'm not saying that at all. But the lifestyle could be. You got to be careful, man. You got to keep your circle tight. Because even if you don't put yourself in that situation, somebody else you know may put you in that situation inadvertently. And that's what you got to look at. Yeah, I'm rooting for a guy like Ezekiel Elliott because I saw what he did at Ohio State. He carried that football team in the national title game when they beat Oregon. It really was on him. He's a phenomenal athlete. There are some things that Ezekiel Elliott has been under scrutiny for that I don't really agree with. Like when he had his shirt tucked in, you know, and he was revealing his chest. Who gives a damn? I remember a lot of running backs doing that back in the day. Eddie George would be one of them. We used to do it when we were kids. I mean, come on, when the football season still starts, let's be honest. It's still hot outside. September is not cold weather. Matter of fact, it's pretty much warm all the way up until November. November's when it starts getting cold. And even then, in places like Florida, games out in California, soon to be Las Vegas, we're not talking about inclement, snowy weather. It's cold through the Midwest and up north. That's where it's cold at. Down in Texas, come on. That's how he feels comfortable to run. That's how he feels comfortable to run. Those shirts are going to give him no more protection than not having it on there. You know what I'm saying? There have been some things that Ezekiel Elliott has been scrutinized for that I'm like, whatever, man. Ezekiel Elliott is a young kid. He's got a lot to learn. You know, it takes a lot to learn how to deal with money. Even if you come from a family that has money, you still have to learn how to deal with this kind of money. This is a different level. This is NFL money, folks. This is NFL money. We're talking millions of dollars. I'd be willing to count on one hand how many guys in the NFL come from families that have millions of dollars, regardless of how much money their family had growing up. I'm not saying everybody in the NFL grew up poor, but I'm just saying hardly anybody grew up in the NFL with a millionaire dad or mom. Come on. There's just a lot of different things that Ezekiel is going to have to learn how to handle, and he's going to have to put some people in place. You know, the thing about it to me is when you've got this kind of money and you're in the spotlight like this, you want to go out to a club, you want to go out to a bar, you want to do what any normal person your age is out doing right now. Going out and kicking it. Well, he just can't do that. Yeah, he can, and he should be able to. He shouldn't be treated any different than anybody else when he goes out to the bar. Other than, hey, man, you're Ezekiel. Let me buy you a shot, bro. Hey, man, we ain't got to kick it for long, man. Just, let me shake your hand. Let me buy you a drink. Let me get a picture, and I'm gone, dude. And we'll let you do your thing, bro. That should be the extent of it. Unfortunately, it's just not. Got guys accidentally shooting themselves in the nightclubs, because they're carrying guns. They got a security everywhere. You're trying to be a normal person. It is what it is. It is what it is. Moving on, media days are over for college football. You know, I'm from the Midwest. And the Big 12 is ever changing and ever falling by the wayside. You want to know personally why, and this is what I've been saying for a long time, why I think people are not investing anymore in the Big 12. Because when the 4 teams left, 3 of them being all solid teams, Nebraska, Missouri, and A&M, I don't think anybody was concerned about Colorado leaving, despite the fact that they finally had a decent year last year. I think the Big 12, there was an understanding that OU was going to step up and dominate and take over. They added West Virginia, who's had marginal success, but I think to everybody it should have easily been Oklahoma and Texas. And it just hasn't been that way. The Oklahoma State have played really good. Coach Mike Gundy, despite what he's done last year with the ring and saying his team only lost 2 games as opposed to 3. West Virginia's marginal success. TCU hasn't really done anything. TCU's had 1 season. Baylor had a couple of really good years. What has anybody really done in the Big 12? They didn't play good enough to beat Clemson. Yeah, sure, it was 24-17 at one point. All right. Final score, 37-17. They weren't ready. As that game progressed, everybody knew what was going to happen, and they got special favor, and they got in over Ohio State because they're Oklahoma. Oklahoma didn't do anything special that year. What has the Big 12 really accomplished? There's a playoff system now. They have an even better opportunity. They can't get anybody to go over there for football. There's no new additions. They're breaking up into conferences this year so that way they can say that they'll have a conference championship game, but that's not going to save them. It's not going to save them at all. Because if the conference champ goes 11-2, 10-3, it won't matter. They're still not going to get in. If you don't believe me, ask Stanford. They'll tell you. They were a far and away better football team that year, and they proved it in the Rose Bowl. The Big 12 will cease to exist within the next 5 years if they don't add some serious firepower. There have been rumors circulating that Nebraska has been thinking about going back to the Big 12. I don't think it would do them any good, to be perfectly honest with you. I think they need to stay in the Big 10. The Big 10, to me, has better football going on right now. There's a better balance of offense and defense, which is part of the reason why the Big 12 isn't respected. Nobody over there knows how to tackle anybody. It's egregious. Sometimes, as a former football player, it's so sickening to watch a game of Big 12 football. I grew up in Kansas. I'm from the Midwest. They just don't tackle anybody. And I get it. The way the offenses are schemed, they're designed to run up and down the field and put a lot of pressure on the defense. The way they spread you out, I get all that, okay? But it's no excuse for game in and game out for everybody to score more than 30 points. It's really no excuse. That's the problem that a lot of people have with the Big 12. To me, at least that's the problem I have. I just can't take it. I can't stand watching the game. It's not entertaining after a while. You know, Oklahoma, like I said, was supposed to be the team, and last year what happens? They get beat by Houston. Then they get snuffed out hard by the Ohio State Buckeyes in Oklahoma. Folks, if you don't think that had something to do with Bob Stoops leaving, I just don't understand where the Big 12 is headed right now. Nobody does. The three best teams allegedly every year are Oklahoma, Texas, and Oklahoma State. Understand, I love Gundy, head coach at Oklahoma State, and I'll tell you why I love him. But before I get into that, don't forget, Talk to Me Tuesday, at Drew Duncan 83 on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Made it real simple for everybody. You can also find me on Spreaker. Message me there, tweet me, talk to me, whatever you want to do. Ask a question, give me your comment, I'll read it live. Boom. Because it's all about the fans. Anything you want to talk about. But I just don't see where Oklahoma is going to fit in with Oklahoma State right now. You know, Gundy has brought up Oklahoma State from essentially being the unwanted stepchild of that state. To me, they're the premier football team. You know, Mike Gundy has only had one season where he didn't finish better than 500. Or I'm sorry, two. That was his first year and a couple of years ago. I know a lot of people think that this is a year for OU, a regime change, no more Bob Stoops. Everybody's looking for Baker Mayfield to really step up and solidify his Heisman Trophy candidacy. I know that the offensive coordinator is going to come in and people think, well, who knows this offense better than he does? But they're losing a lot of guys. No more Joe Mixon. No more Samaje Perine. No more D.D. Westbrook. And that right there, folks, is a combined total of 2,400 yards on the ground and 21 yards receiving. That's over 4,000 yards of offense that this football team has lost in the offseason. And guess who they've got to play on September 9th? Ohio State. Other than that, the schedule warrants to me fairly easy. UTEP, Tulane. We all know they're going to have to play Kansas. Look out for Kansas this year. Those Jayhawks. Oklahoma State, far and away, has a much more favorable schedule this season. Tulsa, South Alabama, Pitt's kind of a challenge. To me, if you were going to ask me who was a better coach, Mike Gundy or Bob Stoops, I'd have told you Gundy. They could have easily played for a national championship the year that they played Stanford and won. Now, I don't want to talk about the alleged pass interference. I'm just saying that they could have easily, either one of those teams, honestly, could have played for a national title that year. Look at the favor that OU's gotten over the years. 35-0 to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. Still ended up playing for a national title. Got beat. I wonder how that happened. The one falter I can say about Mike Gundy has been in bowl games. Oklahoma State hasn't been all that successful. Baylor hasn't been that successful when they were in bowl games. Kansas State has been up and down the last couple of years. They were undefeated. Remember Kansas State a few years ago were on an undefeated run. Then they end up losing to Baylor, a team that at the time was 5-6. And then they go on to play Oregon, and they get snuffed out by Oregon. And what was it, the Fiesta Bowl, if I remember right? Texas Tech, they lose Mike Leach under investigation, allegedly illegally recruiting players and doing all these things. And as a result, they've plummeted. West Virginia every year comes in ranked so high and doesn't do anything. The Big 12 is just not good. It's not good. They're not a solid team or conference. They get a lot of respect, I think, because of a lot of people that are my age and up. They grew up in a time when the Big 12 was respected. Tom Osborne and the option, the Oklahoma Sooners. I mean, nearly every single year it seemed that those teams were ranked 1 and 2 to start the season. They played each other on Thanksgiving every single year. It was tradition. And when they added all those teams from the Big 12, the conference really seemed to step up. Texas A&M. Then you've got already Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas State. At any given moment, you could have had 5 of those 12 teams in the top 25 and been a legitimate contender. Teams were finishing seasons 10-2, 10-1. They were going undefeated. Texas won a national title. They played in 2 BCS national titles, as a matter of fact. Almost stormed back in one of the games against Alabama. It used to be that way. But over the last 4 or 5 years, and given the way that the teams have fallen by the wayside, I just don't respect what's going on right now. And if everybody is saying that Oklahoma is going to finish on 11-2 overall, in a conference that has teams like KU, Texas Tech, Iowa State, a Baylor team that's still reeling from all these allegations and coaching changes, West Virginia team that has to travel all the way from the East Coast to the Midwest and down south every weekend, which probably hinders a lot of their progress, and it's never made sense to me why they're in the Big 12. A Kansas State team that you don't know what you're going to get out of year in and year out. Man, I just don't get it. The Big 12, ultimately, to me, is going to have to either add 2 really big powerhouses or dissolve. Well, Andrew, who do you go and get? Well, how about Northern Illinois? Northern Illinois has had more consistent 10 and 11 win seasons than any team right now in all of NCAA Division I football. What about the Houston Cougars? Sure, they lost their head coach. He moved on to Texas. But if they're able to keep this going, they would be a great fit for the Big 12. How come they couldn't get Navy? Navy had never been in the conference. Navy ends up in conference play in the AAC. Why weren't they able to acquire Navy? There are reasons. You know, the Big 12 was under the impression that they could still go and get whoever they want, and they're just going to come back and play. It's not how this works right now for them. It's not how any of this works for them. Outside of TCU having some of the coolest uniforms in all of college football, there's not a lot this conference has to offer right now. This has been the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. This has been Talk to Me Tuesday. You've been listening live to me. Talked a little Ezekiel Elliott, talked a little Big 12. We'll see what happens. The season is not... The season draws nigh, folks. We're getting close, and I'm sick of waiting. It's July. It's super hot. It's super humid. And man, dude, I'm ready to see some pigskin fly. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Don't forget, you can always follow me on Twitter. That's at DrewDuncan83. The official fan page of Full Court Press is on Facebook at DrewDuncan83 as well. And don't forget, you can also find me on Instagram at DrewDuncan83. Everybody, thank you so much for listening and participating today. Tomorrow we will be back, and don't forget, this Friday we're going to have some UFC fighters on the program, some live interviews. It's just going to be a really good time, so make sure and stay tuned for that. Obviously, we'll have plenty more college football to talk about as it gets closer. And don't forget, coming up, 32 teams, 32 days in the NFL, something I did last year, and I think I'm going to continue to do it. 32 teams, 32 days in the NFL. That's going to start on Monday. Basically, it's an A to Z. Alphabetical order. You just want to stay tuned and listen for your favorite team. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great day.